Good afternoon and welcome to BizTech's Asian Midday Market Watch, powered by Astral Asset Management. It's Wednesday, the 8th of March, and we have Lee Kian Soon, CEO of Astral Asset Management, as our guest today. Now, Kian Soon, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon. Glad to join.
Now, Kian Soon, before we get your insights, and it's an interesting conversation that we're looking forward to, but let's take a look and see how markets across the region have been performing in the first half of the day. We start with crypto markets. Bitcoin is at 22,129. It's down 1.55%. Ethereum is at 1,561. It's down 0.87%. Now, looking across to regional stock markets, we start close to home with you, Kian Soon. The SGX is down 0.56%. We have Bursa Malaysia, which is down 0.32%. Shanghai is down 0.42%. The ASX All Ordinaries is down 0.84%. The Nikkei bucks the trend. It's up 0.5%. The Hang Seng is down 2.4%. And rounding up the numbers, we've got the Kospi, which is down 1.34%. Kian Soon, it's not a great day at the markets. Tell us why.
Not a great morning at all. As we could see, this is actually a follow-up from what happens in the United States yesterday after Chairman Jerome Powell's speech on the fact that interest rates might remain high for going forward.
Now, given that scenario, higher for longer than previously anticipated, as he said, how should then investors react to this?
I think a lot of investors came into 2023 with the expectations that interest rate will peak and the inflation is well under control and etc. And what the Fed has done for 2022 is sufficient. But it's becoming very apparent, and I spoke about this, that inflation might be much more stickier than it seems. Even though it has been on the downward trajectory, which is good, but it is far away from that 2% inflation target that Fed has targeted. So that is a problem. And as we see, given that the economic data is still very strong in 2023, in terms of employment data, in terms of retail sales numbers, it's apparent that the Fed has to do more. And that means, potentially not only would interest rate not peak, we could see a couple of interest rate hikes, and the quantum of the interest rate hikes might be higher than 25 basis points. As we have seen, the expectation for the March interest rate hike is no longer 25 basis points. Majority of the people actually think there's a chance that there will be a 50 basis point interest rate hike.
Okay, so that is interesting because now the dynamics change regionally as well. Because we've had central banks like Malaysia, like South Korea, pause their rate hikes. How is that going to play into policy now that the Fed has signaled that they're going to be, again, higher for longer?
I guess the regional central banks, as well as ECB, the Bank of England, are all taking directions from the Fed. So Fed has shot off the running track by being the first last year, and they have raised the interest rate pretty significantly. The rest of the world is still playing catch up, which they have to, because given that the inflation in each of these regions is also very high. But at the same time, I think the central banks are conscious that too fast an interest rate hike could potentially slow down their economic growth, which a lot of countries are trying to have economic growth, stimulate economic growth after the COVID pandemic.
Okay, speaking of economic growth and after the COVID pandemic, we've got China that's just come out and said that they are targeting for a 5% growth in the coming years. What is your take on that? It seems a rather low target, especially coming from low base effects.
It's interesting during this year's the plenary sessions and the parliamentary meetings, the target will be set by exiting Prime Minister Lee, who is setting a 5% target for his successor, which is going to deliver that kind of results. I guess there are considerations that setting a too high a target might be unwise, given that China has actually missed their target last year. But what is important coming out of the meeting, I guess, is there are clear directions that there will be economic stimulus in the sectors that, like consumption, that they will definitely focus on. At the same time, we are getting assurance that the real estate sector, which was the main culprit for last year's instability across China, the government is definitely going to do much more on this sector to stabilize it, such that you do not have widespread defaults.
Now, looking then through your lens, Kian Soon, because obviously you have your eye on China a lot, what are the sectors that the government will focus on for 2023?
I think it's a no-brainer that for 2023, consumption will be a key highlight. And this could be stimulated by, for example, giving longer holidays, encouraging the citizens to spend, which by default is not difficult given that, the Chinese has a high propensity to save. And they have not been able to spend much during the last few years due to the COVID zero policy in China. So this year, I think there will be a lot of revenge consumption. We have already witnessed the initial part where people gathered in for their banquets, for their feasts. The F&B sector is the main beneficiary of this. We saw domestic travel. As people have not visited their families, for a long time, especially during Chinese New Year period, the gatherings and the family gatherings and the reunions are important. I think next we'll be basically seeing a more, luxurious kind of consumptions like the cars, the luxuries, jewelry, handbags, etc. Because this will be the next wave where I anticipate will be important and will be critical for the Chinese various sectors. And finally, we'll be talking about international travel as, the travel documents, visas, as well as flights are international flights that have been put off are resumed.
Now, Kian Soon, as always, thank you very much for your insights. Thanks for coming on the show.
Many thanks.
Now, we've been speaking to Lee Kian Soon, CEO of Astral Asset Management, on BizTech's Asian Midday Market Watch, powered by Astral Asset Management. I'm Brian Fernandez. This show will be on our website, www.biztech.asia, as well as our social media platforms. It'll also be on our syndication partners, TV stations, radio stations, and websites. Thanks a lot for tuning in.